crazy new experiment shows human brains can detect Earth's magnetic field. So I have to now apologize to one of the viewers that commented to me yesterday that because of the CME that's been coming, the solar radiation that's been coming towards us, he's been having tremendous migraine headaches to the point where he can't stand them. So I apologize to you, dear friend, and you obviously have a very great sensitivity to all this, and most people don't. Some people do, as you do, and this is what has now been detected, evidenced by medical research. This is on Science Alert, just in a couple of hours ago, by Shuke Shimodo, Dao An Wu, and Joseph Kirchvink on The Conversation. Do human beings have a magnetic sense? Well, biologists now know that other animals do, and they think that it helps creatures including bees, turtles, and birds, and of course sea creatures navigate throughout the world. Scientists have tried to investigate whether human beings belong to the list of magnetically sensitive organisms. For decades, there's been a back and forth between positive reports and failures to demonstrate the trait in people, with seemingly endless controversy. The mixed results in people may be due to the fact that virtually all past studies relied on behavioral decisions from the participant. If human beings do possess a magnetic sense, daily experience suggests that it would be very weak or deeply subconscious. Such faint impressions could easily be misinterpreted or just plain missed when trying to make decisions. So our research group included a geophysical biologist, a cognitive neuroscientist, and a neuroengineer. They took another approach. What we found arguably provides the first concrete neuroscientific evidence that humans do have a geomagnetic sense. How does a biological geomagnetic sense work? Well, it's based on the Earth's magnetic field. The Earth is surrounded by a magnetic field, as we know, generated by the movement of the planet's liquid inner core, and it's why a magnetic compass points north. At Earth's surface, this magnetic field is fairly weak, about 100 times weaker than that of a refrigerator magnet. Over the past 50 years or so, scientists have shown that hundreds of organisms in nearly all branches of the bacterial, protist, and animal kingdoms have the ability to detect and respond to this geomagnetic field. In some animals, such as the honeybees, the geomagnetic behavioral responses are as strong as the responses to light, odor, or touch. Biologists have identified strong responses in vertebrates ranging from fish, amphibians, reptiles, numerous birds, and a diverse variety of mammals, including whales, rodents, bats, cows, and dogs, the last of which can be trained to find a hidden bar magnet. Wow! So in all of these cases, the animals are using the geomagnetic field as components of their homing in and navigation abilities, along with other cues like sight, smell, and hearing. Skeptics dismissed early reports of these responses, largely because there did not seem to be a biophysical mechanism that could translate the Earth's weak geomagnetic field into strong neural signals. This view was dramatically changed by the discovery that living cells have the ability to build nanocrystals of the ferromagnetic mineral magnetite, basically tiny iron magnets. Well, we know that the human blood, for example, is made up of a lot of iron, so logically even our blood should have some kind of an ability to sense the changes in Earth's magnetism. Going back to this now, biogenetic crystals of magnetite were first seen in the teeth of one group of mollusks, later in bacteria, and then in a variety of other organisms ranging from protists and animals such as insects, fish, and mammals, including within the tissues of the human brain. Nevertheless, scientists have not considered humans to be magnetically sensitive organisms. Now, manipulating the magnetic field. Study participants sat in the experimental chamber facing north. while the downwards pointing field rotated clockwise, as the blue arrow shows, from northwest to northeast, or counterclockwise, the red arrow from northeast to northwest. In our study, we asked 34 participants simply to sit in our testing chamber while we directly recorded electrical activity in their brains with electroencephalography, that EEG. Our modified Faraday cage included a set of 3-axis coils that let us create controlled magnetic fields of high uniformity via electric current we ran through its wires. Since we live in mid-latitudes of the northern hemisphere and the environmental magnetic field in our lab dips downwards to the north at about 60 degrees from horizontal, in normal life, when someone rotates their head, say nodding up and down, or turning to the head from left to the right, the direction of the geomagnetic field, which remains constant in space, will shift relative to their skull. This is no surprise to the subject's brain, as it directed the muscles to move the head in the appropriate fashion in the first place. Before I forget, I want to put my comment in here. A lot of people do feel better when they orient their beds so that the head of the bed is facing north and the feet of the bed is facing south, as opposed to having it perpendicular to the north-south axis. I mean, a lot of people have felt better just doing that, having their beds facing, the head facing north, aligned with the north-south axis. Amazing. Going back to this now, in our experimental chamber, we can move the magnet field silently relative to the brain, but without the brain having initiated any signal to move the head. This is comparable to situations when your head or trunk is passively rotated by someone else, or when you're a passenger in a vehicle which rotates. In those cases, though, your body will still register vestibular signals that its position in space along with the magnetic field changes. In contrast, our experimental simulation was only a magnetic field shift. When we shifted the magnetic field in the chamber, our participants did not experience any obvious feelings. The EEG data, on the other hand, revealed that certain magnetic field rotations could trigger strong and reproduce brain responses. One EEG pattern known from existing research called the alpha ERD, event-related desynchronization, typically shows up when a person suddenly detects and processes a sensory stimulus. The brains were concerned, quote unquote, with the unexpected change in the magnetic field direction, and this triggered the alpha wave reduction. That we saw such alpha ERD patterns in response to simple magnetic rotations is powerful evidence for human magnetoreception. Our participants' brains only responded when the vertical component of the field was pointing downwards at about 60 degrees, while horizontally rotating, as it does naturally in Pasadena, California. They did not respond to unnatural directions of the magnetic field, such as when it points upwards. We suggest the response is tuned to natural stimuli, reflecting a biological mechanism that has been shaped by natural selection. Other researchers show that animals' brains filter magnetic signals, only responding to those that are environmentally relevant. It makes sense to reject any magnetic signal that's too far away from the natural values, because it most likely is from a magnetic anomaly, such as a lightning strike or lodestone deposit in the ground, for example. One earlier report on birds showed that robins stop using the geomagnetic field if the strength is more than about 25% different from what they were used to. It's possible this tendency might be why previous researchers had trouble identifying this magnetic sense. If they cranked up the strength of the magnetic field to help subjects detect it, they might have instead ensured that subjects' brains ignored it. Moreover, our series of experiments show that the receptor mechanism, the biological magnetometer in human beings, is not electrical induction and can tell north from south. This latter feature rules out completely the so-called quantum compass or cryptochrome mechanism, which is popular these days in the animal literature on magnetoreception. Our results are consistent only with functional magnetoreceptor cells based on the biological magnetite hypothesis. Note that a magnetite-based system can also explain all of the behavioral effects in birds that promoted the rise of the quantum compass hypothesis. Brains register magnetic shifts, and they do this subconsciously. Well, maybe they can also register what's happening at the North Pole, that magnetic shift, the magnetic North Pole. Our participants were all unaware of the magnetic field shifts, and their brains responded anyway. They felt that nothing had happened during the whole experiment. They just sat alone in the dark silence for an hour. Underneath, though, their brains revealed a wide range of differences. Some brains showed almost no reaction, while other brains had alpha waves that shrank to half their normal size after a magnetic field shifted. It remains to be seen what these hidden reactions might mean for human behavioral capabilities. Do the weak and strong brain responses reflect some kind of individual differences in navigational ability? Can those with weaker brains responses benefit from some kind of training? Can those with strong brain responses be trained to actually feel the magnetic field? A human response to Earth-strength magnetic fields might seem surprising, but given the evidence for magnetic sensation in our animals' ancestors, it might be more surprising if humans had completely lost every last piece of the system. Thus far, we found evidence that people have working magnetic sensors sending signals to the brain, a previously unknown sensory ability in the subconscious human mind. The full text of our magnetic inheritance remains to be discovered. This article is republished from The Conversation, a Creative Commons license, and it's on Science Alert. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.